And we are live. Welcome,
In for it.
everybody, to our next episode. We are in episode 18, and we're just humming along. Tonight is part one of a two-part series we're going to do this week. So we're going live tonight, and tomorrow we're going to be live again. A little bit of a different mix of the panel each night, but be great conversations all the way around. So tonight's main topic is talking about grid down trades and services planning. That's the general theme. We'll expand upon that. Tomorrow night we'll be talking about security planning. And right now we have some of our normal panel with Pablo and Brendan, but we have special guests tonight. We have Sam and Cindy and an extra special guest, Steve. This is his first time being on the show.
Thank you.
And I appreciate him being out here. I did a little, back channeling with him past couple of days. He's got a plethora of different experiences, so we can't wait to hear about all that, and we'll apply that to the theme that we're talking about. But before we get started, I want to do our little bit of our Florida weather sit rep. Right now, we have no hurricanes in our zone per se. They are looking at a formation that's off of Africa that most of the models believe will turn into Hurricane Gabriel or Gabrielle, how you want to pronounce it. My personal ETA, if it's going to come near Florida, it's going to be around September 15th or 16th, but I'm not a meteorologist. I'm just taking the information off of Mike's weather page and measuring the grid and, kind of seeing when do we get into that window. So stay tuned to Dennis Phillips. He's our local forecaster. Mike's weather page, Ryan Y'all on YouTube. They're all great resources. I bring them up every week now because I want people to pay attention to the people that are not fearmongers and that give you some real insight into the science and stuff. There's a plethora of channels in my feed of every kind of shape and size that are really trying to fear pour into hurricane season this year. So I want to try to keep everybody out of that nastiness. All right. Now, with that said, I'm going to transition over to Steve, where he can give us a little insight, a little overview, what his experiences are, and then we'll roll into the regular program. Go ahead, Steve.
Fantastic. Thank you for the invitation, first of all. I've been watching the
yeah.
program regularly. My background, I'm a small town farm boy from the Midwest, studied engineering at Purdue University. After getting laid off from multiple jobs as an engineering technician, transferred into the trade of being it was classified as a millwright. I became a plant maintenance technician. I became a welder, fabricator, machinist, electrician, HVAC certified, plumbing, sweating copper, anything and everything that makes a bread bakery function, I was involved in. Raised up on a farm, planted corn, shelled corn, raised cattle, slaughtered hogs. Just about anything you can imagine you can do in the farming environment I've been involved with. For that translates my life now, I'm retired, fully retired, glad to be retired. Trying to take life easy. Networking with friends such as y'all. Staying in touch, trying to get back to life. One of the primary things I'm focusing on in my life at this point in time is wild foraging. Traditional crops in Florida, sweet corn, tomatoes, many things, just don't grow real well here because of the environment. However, if you look at what nature has provided, the plants that grow wild that we always try to kill, much of that we can be sustained on. Amaranth, which was also known as pigweed or goosefoot, is more nutritious than spinach. I raised katuk and moringa, which are from the Indian subcontinent. They grow in our monsoon environment. They do well in wet weather. They take well to dry spells. Bugs do not mess with. Nothing here eats it. My rabbits didn't even eat it when I was raising rabbits.
Wow.
And you take one full serving of moringa, just as an example, has nutrition pretty much of a glass of milk, a boiled egg, and a cup of spinach.
Oh, wow. Well,
Go ahead.
it's interesting because, Cindy, she has quite a few things growing on her property, and so does Brendan. Brendan's into foraging. I know Cindy is too. I keep hearing this word moringa, if I'm saying it right, in the various
Yes.
things we've done together. I couldn't tell you what that plant was if I saw it, but Brendan or Cindy, could you guys chime in and kind of share what your experiences are with that?
Yes, if you come to any workshops, you can take some home. The katuk, Sam had to cut it back because it's just growing. I have a food forest. It was just growing too crazy. So come to the any workshop. You can take all kinds of cuttings home, including the katuk and moringa and many more.
Yeah.
So I have several moringa trees. If I recall correctly, it's the most nutritionally dense plant in the world.
Sounds correct.
It's insane how much nutrition and vitamins are in it. I know over in India, they give it to people who are having troubles conceiving, like they're having malnutrition issues and they just can't get pregnant. And they're using supplements of moringa powder for that. There's a bunch of cool stuff with it. You can eat the seed pods. I've heard the seed pods can actually purify dirty water. I've never tested it myself, but I've heard that. I know the leaves are super nutritious. I put them in my omelets. But you can eat it straight off the tree as well. And it replicates so freaking easy. Cut a branch off, stick it in the ground, boom, you've got a new tree. That's the one thing that I absolutely love about it.
Steve, did you give a presentation at one of the Polk County, the early ones on that?
Yes, I did. You go back somewhere around March or February. I brought up the subject on that. Yes. Another interesting plant that does very well here is called Chaya, Chaya. Pardon me. It's originally from the Yucatan Peninsula.
A lot of people call it naked tree spinach.
Yes, you're correct. It grows rampantly here as well. That I also grow. Another interesting thing that I like to grow is purslane. To me, it's a cool weather plant, but it thrives in our poor soil with no fertilizer, and it does well in drought conditions and in cooler times. Yellow yams that you typically see in some of the Hispanic markets, not to be confused with sweet potatoes, but the actual water yams or yellow yams. They grow voraciously under poor soil. I've grown those also. An interesting one is the Seminole pumpkin. It's a native species to Florida, whereas many times the curbits that we try to grow, cucumbers, the various zucchinis, squash. There's a parasitic wasp endemic to our environment here. You have a zucchini doing beautifully. And you go to bed at night, it looks wonderful. By the next morning, the blooms are wilted, the vines are wilted, the entire plant's about dead. That's from a parasitic wasp. And the Seminole pumpkin is immune to the parasitic wasps. They thrive in this environment. One single plant can put on as many as 30 or 40 fruits. They'll be about the size of a softball. They don't have to be refrigerated to be kept. They can be stored at room temperature, anywhere from 70 to 85 degrees, and they'll keep for 4 to 5 months through the winter.
Wow.
And they're wonderful. They taste wonderful.
You know what's really interesting?
I give them to my chickens, the Seminole pumpkins. The seeds are supposed to be good for parasites, and they just love them. Sam was rather dismayed. He brought me one that he grew, and I gave it to my chickens.
Well, you have to worry about you have to worry about not being loved as long as the chickens will eat it, right? Somebody appreciates it.
Yes. We talk about, okay, you were asking about the different trades that would be required in a grid down situation. In a grid down situation, many of us look at a grid down situation, meaning we're not going to have electricity. Some of us will. I know many of us here have solar systems to be implied, whether it's just a handful of panels to charge batteries for flashlights or for handheld shortwave radios. I have a larger system. I have it uninstalled at this time. I've got the pieces ready to be assembled when needed. And most of it I've got stored in Faraday bags for protection. Well, one of my biggest concerns is either an EMP and or a coronal mass ejection. I know we go back to earlier this spring, one of our Polk County group meetings, many of us were discussing the concerns of power grid failures and how easily it can come about.
Well, when it comes to like EMP or coronal mass injection, I mean, we read about it all in the prepper fiction and a lot of the prepper movies and stuff like that. And I think a lot of people derive, I guess, their motivation or their fear, no matter how you slice it, into why they get into preparedness based on those two things being the big things. But I've kind of like adjusted my thought process on it, where I take a piece of that in a sense where you have the power loss or the inconsistent power.
Yes.
And I always try to find the happy medium to try to, bring in the most people, because not everyone will converge on the same spot on a spectrum of why they do something. But we live in Florida, so we get hurricanes. So you can bring a lot of people into doing emergency planning, different version of prepping because of hurricanes, and power loss and what have you. But I'm a believer that we are more likely to deal with rolling blackouts or restrictions on power and what have you, versus the EMP or the coronal mass injection. Not that they're not possible, and I do have those in the back of my mind, but I like to live by probability versus plausibility. So the EMP and the coronal mass injection are plausible. I mean, they have occurred. We've had a coronal mass injection was in the 1800s. That's what everyone likes to reference.
The Carrington event.
Yeah, Carrington event. So, and then the EMPs, we've really only dealt with that in a limited capacity where they've done atomic or nuclear weapons tests per se. But they usually did those in such remote areas. There really didn't impact, from my knowledge, the normal areas of people for that aspect. So have you heard any different or researched anything different like that?
The one thing that comes to my mind is a satellite that North Korea managed to launch. And it's a very peculiar satellite. It has a north to south direct trajectory. It does not go around the equator or a similar path of most satellites. It's a very unique satellite in that it is transversing over the poles, North Pole to South Pole, and it is not emitting any signals. And there's a lot of concern of, is that a EMP they have put up to drop off sometime? And as it circumnavigates the globe on a daily basis, it traverses over North America on a frequent basis. It's one of those things. You put it in your back of your mind. You don't lose sleep over it, but you put it in the back of your mind.
Yeah, it's been referenced in a lot of materials online and entertainment, what have you. And part of me is like, okay, well, the satellite obviously must be real based on reporting, but whether it has it in it or not, was it really just a game? I mean, they have nuclear weapons, so the possibility is there. And then I go, well, why haven't the Space Force taken it out? Who could, who knows what the reasoning is. But
Are,
one thing
and the next thing is, are they truly capable of taking it out? They've shown they can take out a satellite a time or two, but what is the true functionality of their anti-satellite capabilities?
right.
That's like, why hasn't the U.S. shut down a North Korean launch coming over the coastline towards Japan?
Yeah.
If we show that we try to launch it to take one out, and we show that we cannot do it, we just show that we have a problem, and it encourages them. And and there again, that is one person's point of view. I haven't heard other people. I've not heard Pighead Seth or anyone say stuff like that, but that's just in the back of my mind.
Yeah.
You go back many years ago. I worked for a military manufacturing company in Tampa years ago. At the time, I was an engineering technician. I sat in the high back oak chair, taking a polygraph, being asked the various questions, the questions of, are you now, have you ever been a member of the Communist Party? They asked me, have you ever had sex with small furry animals?
Oh my God. Really? That's a real question?
That was a real question, yes.
Oh my gosh.
My mother called me a few days later asking me what was going on because my grandparents were receiving phone calls. I had to provide the names of my elementary school, middle school, and high school teachers, the names of my parents, my grandparents, my great-grandparents, and if they were dead, where they were buried at.
Wow.
My living great-grandparents received a phone call from national security people asking questions about me. I mean, my family was calling out, what is going on? What have you done?
Yeah.
No, it's not what I've done. It's what I'm about to do.
Yeah.
It was an interesting time of life.
I bet.
One of the programs I was involved in was the early stages of GPS. And they were telling us all about how fantastic this was going to be because it will have military implications and for regular citizens, how we will be able to tell where we're going at and when.
Mm-hmm.
Then you find out 20 years later, these fantastic GPS systems you were helping to design to work on, many of them went off course, did not hit intended targets. There are times at night I had trouble sleeping when you hear what some of the intended targets were and what the bombs eventually took out.
Yeah.
There were times I had trouble sleeping. I've grown out of that phase. I now realize that it was not my fault this happened. There are people in this world that make poor choices, and the choices they bring on. And we look at Palestine from October 7th. You look at the decisions Hamas made and what's happening in Palestine, in Gaza Strip. I don't have any mercy for Hamas.
Yeah.
Bottom line.
Yeah. Well, we face the challenges of the situation over there. We face the challenges of Ukraine and Russia, and it ends up dividing a lot of, just the United States, and it's not even on the party line of whether Republicans versus Democrats,
Right.
It divides within, and, for me, I'm a moderate. I'm not really, I don't say I'm a Democrat or a Republican or what have you.
Yeah.
And a lot of the people that I interact with are very similar. And we tend to kind of stay away from the politics, and, decision makings. We look at the analysis is what I'm trying to drive at.
I agree with that.
In conflicts, no matter who starts it, who, is perpetrating one thing or another, people still die, destruction still happens. And we focus on, how do we sit there and prepare ourselves to not be involved in those things and to kind of survive and thrive to get through or past them,
Yeah. Did you hear about last night? I'm sorry, shouldn't say last night, the night before last. Pentagon. Night before last at midnight. All-time record midnight pizza orders.
I heard somebody mention that, it's like one of those, internet indicators for activity, whether it's
Yeah.
the Pentagon, White House, or what have
Yeah.
you. I
Well,
never dug in deep to see what it was supposed to reference.
what this reference was, and I watch a moderator on YouTube known as Monkey Works,
I've watched them too.
and he referenced yesterday for the night before that the Pentagon the previous night at midnight made all-time record orders to the various pizza delivery services around DC. And they brought in reference to this, that these massive orders for pizza at midnight, 1 o'clock in the morning, the midnight hours, were tied to the invasion of Panama, Desert Storm, the different activities and bombings through the Middle East, the recent bombings of Iran nuclear facilities. It went on to say that it was serious enough of an indicator that during the Cold War, the KGB monitored pizza orders going to the Pentagon at late night hours to track military activities. It's one of those things you put in the back of your mind. It's just something to think about.
Yeah.
What are they up to? What's about to transpire? Or what actually happened that they're not telling us about?
Well, I think yesterday, some Venezuelan boat was shot out of the water or blown up or what have you.
I've seen the video. It was annihilated.
Yeah.
It had 5 large outboard engines on it. It's a Panga style boat. I'd say it was probably about a 26, 28 footer open boat, no cabin. And they literally blew it out of the water.
Yeah. Well, if we look at this through the analysis lens of just of recent incidents. So to me, Iran was probably one of the first outside of Israel's walkie-talkie and beeper situation, for the U.S. to be directly involved when we bombed the bunkers in Iran. That was the first case of, deception that I've seen in a long time.
Yeah.
So when they bring up the indicator about the pizzas, I think that catches a lot of people like, ooh, something's going to happen. Well, for me, they could just be ordering the pizzas just as a deception point. I mean, that's
a diversion
point now. Yes, a diversion.
As a diversion. And you're exactly right. And one of our friends that's on the Tribalist at night sometimes, we discussed this last night as well. Is this just a deceptive tactic to take attention away from something else that they're up to? Yeah. And I've taken us off target. Forgive me. We were supposed to be discussing situations about our life frame during the time frame of grip down emergency situations. Forgive me. I get prone to getting off target sometimes. Forgive me if I do. Tug on the leash and pull me back.
Yeah. Well, let me circle back to something here. So you brought up an interesting point about the different plants that grow in a variety of different soils. They're nutrient dense and what have you. So for me, one of the challenges we have, just using Florida as the model here, this Tampa Bay area, we have a variety of soil quality.
Yes.
I have friends that have properties, and some of them can grow stuff in the ground, and some of them have to build grow boxes, or what have you. So, a lot of the plants that you and Brendan and Cindy were bringing up, they grow quickly. They grow in a variety of things, and they're nutrient dense. So it helps logistically for when a situation happens. And when I say grid down, I wanted to pick a better set of terms because, when we think of when something's going to happen, we think grid down, we think it's The Walking Dead or The Road. Everything collapses and it's pure chaos. And history shows us it's not, the odds are it's not going to be like that statistically. So how do you sit there? You have a situation like we faced in COVID, take out the virus portion of it. Just look at the lockdowns and the shortages and the rationing and things. We have to supplement our food somehow, and a lot of the plants that you guys brought up would be a good way. Now, a lot of us, I live in suburbia, so you have people who live in urban areas. In suburbia, we don't have land really to grow stuff. Like, I have a decent sized backyard, but I lease where I live. But in an emergency, I'll be digging up that backyard to plant some stuff. Now, that seems to defeat the purpose of preparing. Okay. So how fast can some of these plants churn up? And I guess a lot of it's going to depend on the time of season when you plant. So,
Yes.
Cindy, can you speak on a couple of those?
Yes, I'd like to say a couple things. First of all, for food, I think it's good to go with the starchy stuff, the Seminole pumpkins, because they're calorie dense. Mm-hmm. And Steve had mentioned a yellow yam. Taro grows around here. I know there's ornamental taro, but there's also what people call elephant ears, and some of it is edible. Cassava grows great. And as far as poor soils go, I cannot tell you how many loads of wood chips I have dumped on my property. And that is the way to go to build up your sandy soil. We have a few drainage issues in the back. That's why I go with raised beds. But something I really want to stress, and Dominic, I'll fix you up with some cuttings. There's a lot of stuff you can be growing that'll look even ornamental, cranberry hibiscus and a lot of things. It's time to get going and plant some stuff, because I've been at this for decades and I still make mistakes. Yeah. And it's just, it's a learning curve, and sometimes it can be pretty steep. Something I recommend, beekeeping. I think there's been some regulations that have kind of gone by the wayside. They're letting people keep bees in their backyard. Honey is a great calorie source, and you probably know I'm teaching Nancy how to beekeep, and I've had somebody else interested in it, and Sam's working on it. So yeah, beekeeping is great. It's very rewarding, and that's honey never spoils.
Yeah, it's so versatile. It's got medicinal uses too. Mm-hmm. So I think one of the challenges that people are, the normies, let's just call them the normies, they're going to face when we get into these limited resource situations where we're still functioning as a society like we did during COVID, but we're not having access to what we're used to. And so people need to scale up. So people like us that, say you guys are into the plants and stuff like that, and you guys produce different things. One of the ways that you guys can help is when the situation, obviously we want to try to do it beforehand, get people interested. That's why you have the workshops. But we have to face the fact that there's going to be a time when a situation does occur. We're going to have to embrace some normies, not only for ourselves, because it takes people. And we're just going to, a lot of us want to help people in general anyways. So we have to kind of keep that in mind, where some people go and buy seed packs on Amazon and put them in their closet. Now, you guys are actively growing, you have skill sets, but sometimes you need to take the samplings, the cuttings, and transplant them. It might be quicker, might be more efficient.
Ask Sam about our plan for our whole community here. He'll be glad to tell you about that.
Well, what we had, we've gone over a lot of things. We kind of war game things out to see how things are going to go down. And you never know how things are really going to go down. So you have to have contingency plans. But we figure on somewhere between 5 and 12 people here on the property. But we have to think about beyond the property. So we are looking into a neighborhood watch is what we're going to call it. So we get the connecting with the local neighborhood people that live here in the neighborhood. We start to network with them. And if things go south, then we already have those contacts established. They already know that we're part of a neighborhood watch type thing. And so we can assist them and they can assist us. We can hand out radios, both things, hand them out, and start a network within the neighborhood. And we anticipate people, because we do so many workshops and we have so many people in our network, they'll end up coming here for help. So they know our skills and our resources, and then that becomes the question: what do you do with people? You know, when you got people lined up at the gate that are hungry and tired and on edge, you know, you got to have a plan for them. So the idea is to get a buy-in with people in the neighborhood and to create a network, and then create opportunities for other people to go to houses within the neighborhood, work together, you know, with different skills and different resources, and kind of push through any kind of disaster that might happen.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we stockpiled a lot of seeds because we save seeds, and so we would be able to supply a lot of people with seeds and the expertise to teach them how to garden. They could avoid a lot of the mistakes that I've made, you know, throughout my.
Well, you guys are kind of in a great situation. While I was planning out I was talking with Pablo earlier, and I was doing some research about the testing plan for the comms project, you know, and I was kind of seeing how your street went. I'm not going to dox your street here. Some of the things that are on your street we could use as milestones to test the radios. So I took your main street and the one that's parallel to it that begins with the same letter, and they both converge at the same numbered street, to map all that out. And the thing I was noticing is that a lot of y'all on that street have similar properties per se,
Correct.
attributes. So your place being like the training center, you know, you can scale up and replicate on many of the properties on your street. So
Exactly.
you can't feed everybody from your property, but you have the skills and the backup of seeds to help scale them up. So
yeah, and then we're all about bartering. So we're constantly mindful of having our own ability to trade skills and seeds and plants and food and everything else, you know, and we can teach the neighbors how to do the same. And so in a grid down situation, we're already thinking about that being we do it now.
Yes.
I mean,
I just filled the
doing
incubator with over 45 chicken eggs. I'm getting ready to hatch for people in the group. And we have plans to be able to supply chickens to people and maybe do some Amish style barn raisings where you build coops instead of barns. And
well, kind of like making starter packs. I mean, that's what they do in that's what Bear does, right? They use sheep, or
so he calls it as the Hebrew starter pack, and the way they set it up, it'll be 2 ewes and a ram, as well as 3 or 4 chickens, hens, and a rooster.
I love that.
And you give that to a new family who's just moving out onto their property. Use this, build up your flock, and once you have an established flock, you then donate the same setup to the next person coming in. Me and Derek are actually in the process
I love
of this now. I have rams, he has ewes. So in the next few days to a week, I'm actually getting my ram ready to go up north to him. And in exchange, I will get the fresh ewes as well as an unrelated ram. And we're going to build both of our flocks off of that. And then every couple of years, just swap rams to keep the genetics clean.
Oh, that's awesome.
I would like
you mentioned swapping genetics. That is very important when it comes to animal husbandry.
Yeah.
Swapping to the genetics is very important to animal husbandry.
Yeah. What were you saying, Cindy?
I would love to barter for one of those babies in the spring. Name your bartering price.
Yeah. Brendan loves to barter, man. Let me tell you.
I do too.
Yeah. And Joe's done that. Joe, he's the one that brings the banana pudding. If you guys
yes, that stuff is so delicious.
Yeah,
I've got a sheep in my backyard from Joe.
yeah, yeah. So he's bounced around between. He's done rabbits a couple different times. I helped him cull some rabbits once, and then he's sheep's. Does he have goats too? Did he have goats?
Not the last time I was up there, he didn't. It was just sheep.
He likes sheep. That seems to be where they're settling. But they experiment with stuff. So
That's what I'm going to. I've raised just about every traditional domestic farm animal, and then even some weird ones. We did peacocks for a while and a bunch of other weird stuff. But I'm now converging down onto what I like, and so I'm focusing on I'm phasing out my cows. I'm down to one now, and I'm trying to get to just all sheep this next year, and then I'm bringing turkeys back in. I've got a couple poults now, and then I want to do Tornix quail again.
yeah,
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah. No.
So Pablo, we haven't heard from you tonight. So what are your thoughts on what we talked about so far? You got any insight?
Well, I'm kind of in the same boat as you. I'm in suburbia, so like I have a little garden in the backyard, but I don't have I can't have animals. I'm pretty sure I can't have bees either. I just started growing things last year, and it's been an interesting experience. Just learning on what to do, how to take care of the plants and stuff. So from that perspective, at least the things I grew, it took at least 8 weeks to actually see the fruit grow. So from based on your question from earlier, like if I had to plant something when the grid goes down, like I had cucumbers, I had some squash, I've had cherry tomatoes, and I didn't see any actual fruit that I could eat for almost 2 months.
Yeah.
Real quick, I want to touch on something that you mentioned earlier. So you talked about a lot of people just buy seed packs and then put them in the closet, so to speak, or whatever they do with them. So a lot of the times the seeds you're getting from online or in Lowe's or wherever you go to get your seeds aren't climatized to you. And there is also a learning curve. So one of the examples I love to tell people when I do this, there's a website, Baker Creek Seeds. They've got a bunch of absolutely cool stuff, huge amount of variety. I ordered a bunch of okra seeds from them a few years ago. The first year I planted okra from one of their seed packs, I planted 24 seeds. I got 2 plants. I saved the seed from one of those plants. The next year I planted 24. I got 12. The third year I did it, I planted 24. I got 24. So every year you climatize and get seed from that climatized plant, you are going to increase what grows the next year. And of course, plus you're going to help kind of round that learning curve as well. Yeah. And there's a lot of stuff you can do in buckets for like backyard stuff. I love the starchy stuff. I grow purple sweet potatoes. That is one of my particular favorite cultivars. The reason being is because you can eat the tuber itself as well as the greens. So my wife makes salad greens with the sweet potato greens, Malabar spinach, and then we chop up fried okra into it. But I also like the variety of what you can do with a sweet potato. You can mash it, boil it whole, cut it into fries, chips, all that stuff. Just it helps. I got a bunch of small kids. Food fatigue is a thing. Yeah. So I like plants like that have the multiple uses. The chickens absolutely love the sweet potato greens. The ungulates love it. But it's something that can easily be grown in 5-gallon buckets. You can make slips to grow more sweet potatoes extremely easy. I've grown okra in 5-gallon buckets, moringa in 5-gallon buckets. So there's a bunch of stuff that can be done in a relatively small area that doesn't affect the land around it if it's a case of renting or leasing or things of that nature.
Yeah. Another thing is when people get into growing, especially if they're starting out, you don't know what's going to grow. you haven't found your balance yet. And if you haven't staggered it out, so you might get, a giant, bushel of tomatoes. Well, there's only so many tomatoes you can eat. So then it's like, do I give these away?
Make
Or
sauce.
right, can it, and what
So
have you.
so that's a
Or
thing that
dehydrate.
people
Yeah.
yeah, or dehydrate. So a lot of people don't realize, or maybe they do, but just not consciously. There's a reason we have a lot of our traditional things now. Like tomato sauce isn't because, hundreds of years ago, people were like, I'm going to invent pizza. No, it's, you got a bunch of tomatoes. What do you do with it? Because they're going to rot. That was a way to preserve it. Jellies and jams and preserves, it's a way to keep berries around and have that throughout, the colder months where they don't grow, things like that. So there's definitely ways to preserve it. That's another one of the main reasons I love sweet potatoes. You brush the dirt off, you set it on the counter to cure for 2 weeks. It's good for 6-8 months sitting on my countertop or sitting in the pantry. Squash is like a good butternut squash, or like he was talking the Seminole pumpkins, same thing. It lasts fine on the counter. Yeah.
Well, it's great to have things that produce food. Now, what I've noticed is that, especially the hobby chicken raisers, they end up having so many eggs that they just can't eat any more eggs. And then they just try to give them away to everybody. It doesn't seem like people try to preserve eggs as much as they do vegetables. I know you can do that pickling lime in a bucket or a jar.
So my wife wanted to do that one year, and she attempted it and then realized, so we've got 3 dozen chickens because chicken math is a thing. And she thought it was a really cool thing to do. And she did it one time and realized, oh, we get anywhere between a dozen to 20 eggs a day. Why the hell am I trying to preserve? So if you have chickens,
Okay.
I don't personally see a use in preserving them. It makes sense if you don't have chickens and you're getting your eggs from somebody. But even then, how long?
So I'd like to introduce something here, if I could, please.
Yeah.
Egg preservation. Go back, we talked about COVID earlier. There was a time during COVID that eggs were hard to find.
Yeah.
And we all know store-bought eggs have been washed and sterilized, and the bloom is washed off the eggs. Something I learned to do several years before this was to use food-grade mineral oil. You take a very light coating of food-grade mineral oil and coat the store. You rinse and wash the store-bought eggs in just tap water. Let them air dry. After about 6 to 8 hours, take a paper towel with a very light coating of food-grade mineral oil and do a very light rub down on the eggs. Let them set. Let them set aside for a half hour. Put them back in the cartons. Put them in the fridge. They will store for 4 to 6 months.
Stay refrigerated with the mineral oil.
Yes. Yeah. And that is to say, well, in Florida, refrigerated. If we were like in Michigan, Montana, where a nighttime daily temperature, you go back to my early life, where my great grandparents had a spring house. Had a cold water spring coming up out of the limestone rock, blocked up, worked around with a roof. My great grandfather stored meat, egg. My great grandfather stored a watermelon until New Year's Day. He waxed it in the greenhouse so he could have a watermelon on spring house days. My grandmother told me about that. And then again, he was also in gin house. He was also in bathtub gin during Prohibition. But there are workarounds to storing things. And the food grade mineral oil on eggs works. I stored eggs for 4 to 5 months after COVID in my fridge, bottom of the fridge. I took them out 4 to 5 months later, the last dozen or so. I cracked them perfectly fine. They were slightly dehydrated. You know, you have the little air gap inside the egg. After they've sat in there for a few months, that little air gap gets to become a little more intense as it goes. But they were not rotten. They were not spoiled. They were highly edible. Just by using food grade mineral oil to replace the natural bloom that the hen leaves on the eggs. You go to places such as Australia, they don't refrigerate eggs.
Well, in the spirit of my canning, brethren out there in YouTube land, we are just hobbyists and not professionals. So please refer to the appropriate government website.
Agreed.
Before you make any decisions dealing with food.
So
I agree.
So just a quick little anecdote. My son-in-law is from England, and so they don't refrigerate their eggs in England either. So moves out of England, meets my daughter, so on and so forth. So in England, always had the eggs on the counter. Was living over here for a few months, and being a young man, all of his food came out of a can, so he never bothered to buy eggs while he was over here. Ends up coming over to our place, sees the eggs on the counter, doesn't think about it. Well, when he and my daughter got a place together for the first time, didn't realize you had to refrigerate store-bought eggs here. So bought a dozen eggs and left them on his counter for 3 days, and that was a fun experience for them.
Ooh,
Ouch.
that must have brought a fragrance to the house.
Ouch. Welcome to salmonella.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Another thing to think about. We were talking about wet soil, poor drainage. I live around Winter Haven, Auburndale, chain of lakes. Something that grows voraciously here, other than cat, we all know cattails are edible at various different stages. Cannas, Cannas, cannas. Most of these flowers grow around the lakes, really red blooms, highly edible. When they first, I grew them around my home for a period of time. I need to get more tubers back. I should say rhizomes, not tubers. They can be confused with an iris if you're not familiar. However, the cannas, the young greens, as they're growing out of the water or out of the ground, they get to be 10, 12 inches tall, can be clipped and cut and chopped and used like greens, similar to spinach or collard greens. Otherwise, the fully mature tubers that grow in the ground or in the water, in the mud, be taken out, washed off and rinsed, wrapped in foil, and baked and eaten just like a sweet potato. Highly nutritious, very starchy. And if we go on to talk about the desire to have starchy plants, other primary greens that grow in soils, one of the primary ones, I'm trying to stretch my mind here, forgive me. I'm sorry. COVID took part of my memory. I'm sorry.
I would just like to say, if anyone wants
Pickerel weed. Forgive me. I'm sorry. Yeah, pickerel weed. Pickerel weed. The greens from pickerel weed can be consumed green without being cooked, and the human body can consume the starch and convert for fuel energy. I'm sorry. Forgive me.
Okay. Cindy, what were you saying?
Is the microphone on, Sam?
Yeah.
Okay, I was going to say, if you want some of those edible canna lilies, I've got a lot here. They reproduce rapidly, And a big tip off with them, if you know they're a canna lily, the red flower on them will be much less showy than the ones that are ornamental. And they
Yes.
are very good. And Sam took the weed whacker to mine, but they come right back. I think it was revenge for the Seminole pumpkin.
I got two things I was going to mention, and then we got to get off the call here in a minute.
Yeah.
You're talking about growing things in grow bags and buckets and various things. That's often a really good solution because a lot of people have lawns that are full of toxic glyphosates and various things. And if you live in the urban areas, more than likely your yard is not the best soil anyway. So growing things in a grow bed or a bucket or different, just somewhere above the ground is a really good idea. The other thing I wanted to mention is those of y'all that live in urban areas, one of the advantages to having a mag group is if you find people in your group that do have land, a lot of times, and we've offered it here, you know, we'll let people come here and start their own garden, you know, get their hands in the soil and learn how to do this and start get jump started. You know, the time to start a garden is not, it was yesterday.
4 months ago.
Yeah. A year ago. And like Brendan was saying about the seeds, I found that out really quick. My first garden, I was lucky. I grew a lot of things, but I kept the seeds for everything. And as I returned the seeds back, I noticed that they became acclimated to the environment. And, you know, that is the way. That's building up a seed bank of your own is the way to go.
Oh, yes. Yeah. You know, and it's a great point you're bringing up. A few years back, I thought about trying to figure a way to help people co-locate. That's kind of because, you know, you need the skills and, you know, you got to have that sweat equity. But what I soon realized, like many things, you got to develop the relationships with people because you're letting them into your home. You know, even if they're not coming in your house per se, they still got to come on your property on a frequent basis. You may not be home and you got to be able to trust that they're going to take care of it. You don't want them to create a whole big garden and then they abandon it. That changes the input. You don't want them sitting there coming in with all the chemicals to treat for bugs. And when you're going organic on your side. So I think it's a great opportunity for people. And I applaud you guys for considering that with people. And I think it's something that could work. You just got to find the right connections with the right people, you know? And because a lot of people that have acreage, you know, 5, 10, 15, 20 acres. And even if you can't build on it, which is a lot of the big acreage plots here in Florida, I kind of notice. You're like, I got 20 acres. Well, you're living on a half of it, and you're not even using 1 acre. So what are you doing with the rest of it?
Well, there's been people in our network that have had land, and they're looking for people to literally, you know, pull up their RV and start, you know, working the land or putting down some bushes or trees or whatever. So you've got all kinds of people in the network like ours, people that we're trying to bring together. Some are in apartments and have no land, and then others have all this land and they have no people. Yeah. And the big thing is to meet people in the real world and vet them and get to know them. And then you can make those tough decisions and have those conversations that you don't want to have online anyway.
Yeah, that's so true. All right. So before we segue over to the next portion, does anyone have any final comments on like the food and the growing? So I'm going to move over to the services.
All right. Well, we'll stay for a few minutes on the services.
Okay.
Yeah, I just would like to mention if we could bring up the future chicken processing workshop for people to keep that in the back of their mind and maybe get in contact with you or with Sam about that if they're interested, because that will require some pre-planning. And then another one probably at the month after the comms, we'd like to do a regenerative soil practices workshop.
Oh yeah.
which will go a long ways towards amending sand and doing it very cheaply.
Yeah. Those would be two great activities.
Yeah, and I'd like to have a range meetup also in the fall. But we'll,
Yeah.
when we nail down these dates, we'll post them from the
I
group.
think we're looking at Dade City, the outdoor range, for a meetup too, because we had some people we want to bring together from
Yeah,
different
from Ocala.
regions. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that'll be cool. Looks like October, November, into December can get pretty busy. We're filling it up.
Yes.
We try to do a couple of things every month.
Mhm.
Yeah, yeah. And then there's the camping and the hiking and stuff like that. So
Yes, gotta have that. Gotta have the fun stuff too. But it's all fun to us. We love all of it.
very good. All right, so let me take this opportunity to segue over to services planning. And my point being with this is that, again, the same context is that we have limited, disruption, like COVID without the vaccine, just shortages, can't get parts, maybe services get impacted. You see a lot of stuff with videos. Oh, if the grid goes down, stuff your toilet with a bunch of socks and underwear, and that'll prevent the stuff from sewage from coming up. I don't know how true that is. I'm not a plumber, and I don't really understand how all the water pressure works and stuff like that. So even if it doesn't come up in your house, it's probably going to come up in the street. So, and I use that as an example because we'll have sewage issues. We're going to have, even if we're having brownouts and rolling blackouts, that's going to have impacts on the electrical infrastructure in the homes. Because Florida has a wide variety of homes, from the cigar box houses from the early 1900s down in Ybor and in Seminole Heights to the cinder block, no central air homes in Spring Hill, to all the mini McMansions we have in suburbia. They're all constructed differently. So if the electricity is limited or gone, well, this house, you can open the windows and you get some airflow and you'll be cool. Where in my house, it'll be a hot box because my house is built different than an old cinder block home from, the 60s or whatever, old Florida home. So can you guys think of a couple services that are really on your mind that one are a big concern for you, and a good example of what you've taught yourself or got skills or training to learn to be able to help mitigate those issues for you and your bubble, your network? So let's start with Sam and Cindy, since they're ready to get off soon. You're muted.
Okay, Sam gave this to me, so I'm going to do my best with it. But one thing that Sam and I war gamed together was, I have a well here and a lift station to get the sewage into my septic system.
Okay.
So we had to think very carefully about that because of the lift station. We needed for that to operate and keep the sewage, flowing. We had to make sure we had enough solar power to run that and get it into the septic tank. So we did do that. We have enough power to do that, and we looked into some well options, and we can pretty much run a lot of the things here. Unfortunately, there's not quite enough power for Sam to have the hot showers that he likes so much. I love cold showers, doesn't faze me. But Sam kind of got a little no hot water.
Sam, get a hold of me. I have an off-grid hot water system on my Georgia property.
Yeah.
Get a hold of me and I'll teach you how to make it. It's super easy.
Yeah.
I suggested he uses the hose after it sits out in the sun for a while. I can get down.
I'm going to snake the hose up on the roof.
So what we literally did is we just took, $20 propane burner that you get from Lowe's for frying a turkey. with the big old pod in it. We took a fish tank pump, hook it to a 12-volt car battery, and then coiled copper tube. It was an old moonshine still, allegedly. I cannot confirm or deny. And we just cycle that into a 5-day cooler, let it sit for 10 minutes to cool down so you don't scald yourself. And then we just hook that fish tank pump over to a garden hose that we have strung up over a branch, and that's our shower system at my hunting camp.
I
Look
love
at
it.
that. For me,
Good deal.
I just went and bought one of those tankless hot water camping heater things that run on propane. So as long as I stock enough tanks, I'll have a hot shower. I could not even troubleshoot what you just explained, Brendan. See, this is where the skills are important. So I mean, I'm teasing Brendan, but he is a great example of he knows a little about a lot of things, and he can make stuff work. And those skills are so important in an impacted situation. Here's another story. So we, me, Brendan, his family, Nancy, we all went to the HAP Summit in what was 2024, right? April 2024.
Yeah.
And so we're all camping and everything. And Nancy left her keys inside her fifth wheel, whatever you call it. Okay. And I was like, crap. So I'm over there. I'm trying to figure out, well, how can I open this? I have no clue. I can fix a computer, but opening up a lock, I'm out of gas. So I'm like, let me get Brendan. Brendan comes over.
Forgot about
He pulls out a multi-tool or a screwdriver, key. Jimmy, boop, pops it open.
Jingle keys. You can get them online, dirt cheap, or sometimes they're called jiggler keys.
Uh-huh.
I actually have. Give me 2 seconds. I have a set sitting right here that just came in.
If we had left it up to me and Nancy would have been calling a locksmith while we were camping. So, everyone's got to get a Brendan, and everyone's got to get a Cindy, and don't forget, get a Pablo. Okay?
So
they are the best multi-tools out there.
These right here come, you get a whole, ring of them for about $10. And let me see if I can.
What Doc has.
Mm-hmm.
So they're just rough cutouts.
No, he's got
and you stick them in a lock and then just rake them back and forth or jiggle them around, and it will pop most locks. So the reason I got these is my children have a beautiful habit of locking my keys in my truck. And my brother had pulled out a set one day and showed me them. So I bought some, figured out which one worked best, just took a day, took 10 minutes, ran through the whole ring, figured out what worked best on my vehicle. And then I would keep that in one of those little magnetic key mounts under the frame of my truck. That way, if I needed to get in, I could, but it couldn't start the truck so somebody could steal it. Since that, I give these out to everybody. They're just awesome to have. It'll get you into your house if you need. The house locks are kind of harder because it's generally a smaller lock. But as far as vehicles goes, get you in real quick. And those are awesome.
Brendan, can I make a suggestion?
Yeah.
I think you need to have a workshop on redneck engineering.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Oh, man. Oh, God.
I would love that.
I need it.
My stepdad, he gave me I am not a mechanic, right? Like, I can get me off the side of the road. That's about it. My stepdad's a mechanic. And he has gotten me home via telling me what to do on the phone. I was on the side of I-4, and he's like, all right, go to the bed of your truck and tell me what you have. He got me home with a Mountain Dew can and 2 hose clamps. And after that, I was like, all right, cool. I can do anything now.
Oh. It's his version of duct tape and push pins.
Exactly.
Oh, man. Oh, so that's great. All right, what about you, Pablo?
I feel like I have some decent skills. What I feel I'm lacking is supplies. So, like, I was thinking about before the show. It's like, what can I actually do? I work on my own cars. I have no issue with that. But depending on what the issue is, I'm gonna need some parts. Like I keep in the garage. I keep enough to be able to do like an oil change. Um, I have an extra set of brake pads. I have extra fuel. I have brake fluid. I have basically a transmission fluid. If I actually need to change it, it's already there. Bigger parts like an alternator or something like that, that's a little bit more complicated. Um, and the same goes for like electrical. Like I can do in any pretty much anything electrical. Um, Plumbing, I've had to do a few basic things. If I didn't know how to do it, just go to YouTube, look it up. 5 minutes later, I fix the toilet or I fix the sink. Like that hasn't really been an issue. The current thing I think I lack is if something happens to the house. So like if someone or something breaks the window, like I need to block the window to protect it from the elements and from other people. For that, I basically need a big sheet of plywood or something to actually cover the window. That's the stuff that I don't have right now.
Yeah.
And that's the stuff that's on my mind. Is like if something like that happens, can I do it? Yes. Do I have the stuff? No. So like, what do I need to get? What besides like a window? What else would I need to cover? Like I have a few tarps, I have hammers, I have nails, I have screws, but like stuff like that, like big sheets of window to cover the big sheets of plywood or something to like cover the window in case something happens. If I need to patch the roof or something, like that, those are the things that are on my mind currently. And trying to make a list of okay, this is the stuff that I would need. I think I'm pretty covered on food and medical supplies. I could always use more medical supplies, but I'm stuck enough on a bunch of different things. Like when Van showed us how to do the IVs, then I actually got some saline, some IVs, IV kits. So yeah, stuck enough on a bunch of different things. The thing about me is because this is what I do for work every day. I figure stuff how to. I can figure out easily how things work. If I know how it works, then I can either fix it or I can replace it.
Yeah, Pablo, you always see in videos where people say, make sure you have spare parts for all your stuff. Pablo is the only guy that I've ever met that literally has spare parts for most of the things that,
I
generate.
still say Pablo doesn't count because Pablo can look at something for 60 seconds and all of a sudden he's a master of it. So my wife's the same way, man. It's like I constantly tell her, it's like, you don't count. You're the exception to the rule. You're an outlier. My wife's a genius. She'll read something one time and that's just cemented in her brain forever. Not me.
Yeah, no, see, from that perspective, like I got a generator to power the house earlier this year, but for me, that implies, okay, I have the generator, but I need oil to do the oil changes. I need air filters. I need spark plugs. And because I actually do the maintenance on my equipment, I got the gauges to do the adjustment of the valves. I got spare gaskets for the head. So like I'm good to service the generator for the next 500-600 hours.
Yeah. I tease Pablo with my comment, but I mean, it's true. And it's very impressive, and I do it to bring home a point. Logistics. A community runs on logistics. I mean, we could all sit there and stockpile all kinds of stuff and everything, but you need like a brain like Pablo and I say a brain like it's wired in a sense that he's got attention to detail, okay? And then allocates the resources to build the logistics to it, okay? And it's probably something similar to what Cindy does with her property and all the stuff that she grows. Pablo might be more of a scientist and Cindy might be more of an artist, I'm just like guessing here. Sam's probably more of the science logistics guy, where Cindy's like, oh, I'll make this grow over here. I'll just try this over here. you know, and that's based on, you know, experience and love of the game, so to speak, you know. But logistics are so important, and we got to think beyond just the individual and even beyond our own household. We got to think our neighborhood. How, you know, I say the neighborhood in a general sense, but it's like we are gonna, if you're a believer that community is the key to surviving and thriving any kind of emergency situation, then you have to embrace that you're going to bring in people, and odds are they may not be the most ideal people. There'll be normies or somebody that, you know, you weren't expecting, and you got to have some means to be able to utilize them. Brendan's used a reference many times about, and a lot of this probably comes from Bear and Joe, Joe Fox, Viking preparedness. A lot of shovels. Everyone could be a ditch digger. Okay, people. Somebody's got to watch the kids. Somebody's got to cook. Somebody's got to clean. Someone's got to dig the hole. So we can always utilize people, even if they don't have the skills that we hear on all the YouTube videos. And I like to make the reference that we try to collect people like action figures, you know, a doctor, you know, an operator, a mechanic, you know, and they could have those skills, but if their personality sucks, okay, or if they're not of good character, which are two different things, okay, then they may not be worth the squeeze. They might be more of a detriment than an asset. So
I've met a lot of guys in this space who I've done training with who they are grade A as far as skills, but frankly, they're just cocky or arrogant or guys I just don't want around my family. And if I can't leave you alone in a room with my wallet or my wife, I don't need to associate with you.
Amen.
Absolutely. All right, we're gonna drop off the call, but this has been fun, and I think we'll be back tomorrow for the other one.
all right, that's awesome. That'd be great.
So good night, everybody.
Thanks
We'll
for
see you
joining.
tomorrow.
We'll see you guys tomorrow. You guys have a great night.
Thanks.
And so let's see. All right. All right. See, Pablo, we talked about service with you. Brendan, do you talk services yet?
Just not wholeheartedly, but so for me, I think it's going to come down to economic troubles. So like you were talking about, like maybe not total grid down, but you know, disruption of services. As an example, I know a couple of people in my area. So Tico's the biggest power company out here, right? They on average have been going up, I think it's 12% every 2 years.
Yes.
Like the cost that they've been going up is insane. I have a lot of people on my property. I was kind of chuckling to myself when Sam was saying that they plan to house 5 to 12 people. I have 5 to 12 people in my house at any given moment. Like 5 is a minimum. I'm down to 5 right now.
Yeah.
And that's only going to last for the next like 2 weeks.
Yeah.
I've got another one coming. But so we've got a big power bill. And I was doing the math with my wife the other day. Like we are like approaching to where using power, grid power, is almost the cost of running a generator. And I was telling her, look, if it gets over this number, I'm shutting our main breaker off and we're just going to the dang generator. There's no sense. I'm not going to spend $600 a month on a light bill if I can, you know, get the same thing out of a propane or gas generator.
You guys can start dropping that into solar panels.
Exactly. So I do think a lot of the, like your traditional trades are going to be super useful. Carpentry, welding's going to be a big one. General electrical work. My stepbrother is a Tico subcontractor, and electricity. I have a healthy respect for electricity. You know, it's like I'm not afraid of it, but I'm not playing with it willy-nilly. And but for him, he can look at something, troubleshoot it, route it out. Oh, just use this, that, and that, and boom, it's good. Oh, if you don't have this, you can use that. And yeah, that sounds great. Nope, I'm not playing with it. That's why you're here. And but having the knowledge of doing stuff like that, and then troubleshooting that, because I can call them, hey, look, this isn't working. All right, check this and this. Yeah, okay, you definitely have this one thing that I never would have thought. Look, if it's not a problem at the switch or at the light, I'm lost. He can diagnose burnt neutrals and things of that nature, and but that comes with the knowledge and the experience, that I just don't have. Something that, again, if it's not right at the switch, the wire's not loose, I'm lost. So for me, that might now be a useless thing that could be an easy fix that he knows of. So having those trade-based, like traditional plumbing, electrical, carpentry, welding, as Cindy liked to call it, redneck engineering.
Yeah.
A lot of my house and property is held up with duct tape and prayers, as my wife likes to say. But having backups, like Pablo was saying, having the material lying around, all the piping in my house, I have 10-foot sticks of for every diameter I have in my shed in case something goes wrong. I have 2 sets of every coupler I need, couplers, elbows, things that if something were to break, I can use. Roof, I have a shingle roof. Keep a gallon of roofing tar if you get a hole punched in your roof, or keep a couple shingles lying around if you have the space. A gallon of roofing tar is cheap and it never goes bad, relatively speaking. If you got a metal roof, a couple of tubes of silicone and a caulk gun, it's not going to help if you got like whole sheets ripped off.
Yeah.
But as far as like a branch comes down and pokes a hole, it'll keep your ceiling from caving in. So I've got rolls of electrical wire put up. Southern Prepper One does a thing that kind of is where I got the inspiration of it. He wants to be the, without rule of law hardware store.
Yeah.
So he has everything you could think of spread throughout his property. Now, I don't want to do that, but I want to be able to maintain my property and my neighbor's properties. And it's happened several times where something goes wrong during my youngest daughter's birthday a few months ago. Wouldn't you know, I blow a pipe on my well. I didn't need to go to the store. I went to my shed, had everything there, fixed it up, got it taken care of. I did end up having to run for one tiny little part, which made me mad. It always sucks to drive 30 minutes to the hardware store over a $2 part, but I fixed my my neighbor's plumbing several times just off stuff I've had in the shed. When you don't live a 10-15 minute drive from the store, it's nice to have that stuff lying around. And for me, because of nature of my work, I'm in the store all the time. So if it's something that I've seen go out regularly on other people's homes, it's something that in the back of my mind, okay, this is common enough that I'm seeing it multiple times. You know what? I'm here. It costs $5. I'm going to buy a second one, throw it in a bucket at my house. And you walk into my shed and it's literally, I've got a 5-gallon bucket just labeled plumbing on top of it. That's just couplers and parts, and one labeled electric, and it's just, wire nuts and tape and different lengths of wire and different gauges and things of that nature, little acorns to connect to your ground rods and things of that nature. And I've got 4 or 5 buckets geared toward 4 or 5 different things, roofing or electric or plumbing or framing or anything of that nature. So I think there is going to be a huge value in having those skills as well as those materials. Now, things can always be sourced, right? You look at, I had a Jamaican business partner for a long time, and that dude, like, it's the same. I have a Haitian father-in-law, and same thing. The how those guys grew up. If you didn't have something cool, figure something else out. He had a wax ring failure on his toilet one time, and I showed up the next day, and he had cemented, just grouted around his toilet, and it's like, yeah, it's not coming out. It works, good enough. And I was like, I would never do that, but as far like it worked, it didn't leak.
Yeah.
As far as a practicality purpose, it'll get you by. But in my mind, hey, go to the store, spend $5, get a wax ring. In his mind, it's what do I have on hand right now? Because he spent the first 40 years of his life in Haiti.
Yeah.
And you didn't have the option to just go to the hardware store. And he's still in that mindset because he spent most of his life in a country that you don't have open access to everything at your fingertips. And it's not like a money thing. Guys got
Yeah.
He's got more money than most. It's just that's how he lives.
Well, I think Americans, a lot of times they don't have the skill set, which is a big barrier. They can't grasp it because they've never really been exposed to it. It's not that they don't have the cognitive ability to do it. It's just they don't have the experience. And it's like, ooh, but then, you got others that would be like, we're worried about resale value or permits or a landlord, where people in other countries are just like, fix it.
I just need it to work. Yep.
I just need it to work. They're not thinking about, I'm going to sell my house. And is this going to be a problem?
Yeah. Regarding that, the other thing that Americans have is that concept or mindset of most things are disposable. Yeah. Something broke, throw it away, get a new one.
Yeah.
It's like, no, I'll take it. I'll fix it, and I'll either use it or I'll sell it. Like I had when I lived in Cleveland, I had a friend at work that had a really loud Hyundai. It had an exhaust leak, so it was super loud. And he said he was going to take it to a junkyard. It's like, no, I'll take it. How much is the junkyard going to give you? $100. I'll give you $100 for it. So we went to the DMV to do the transfer, and he felt so bad because he thought the car was so bad. He said, "Never mind, just give me $50." It's like, okay. I gave him $50. We transferred the title in my name. I went to Home Depot, got a clamp and a piece of aluminum, and fixed the exhaust leak. It cost me like $5. You had a power steering issue, went to a junkyard. $2 later, I bought a new line, replaced it, power steering fixed. Just had to buy the fluid.
Yep.
It needed 2 new tires that I can't really fix. I bought 2 new tires. I detailed the car, and I traded it in for my first pickup. You know how much I got as a trade-in?
$5,000?
No, $1,800.
$1,800. Okay. Oh, still great.
And I paid $50 for it, and I spent like $200 in tires and all the other stuff. He was so mad. I told him because I showed him. I traded in your car. I got this pickup. I was like, wait, what? Like, yep. It's like, yeah. So like fans. I remember I fix fans. I fix my niece's toys. Like I used to break my toys when I was a kid. Mostly because I just wanted to figure out how it worked, and then I would put it back. Sometimes I would put it back together, and it worked again. It's like, oh, okay, I figured it out. So yeah, if something breaks, I'll fix it. I'm not gonna throw it away. Like that's my mentality. So from growing up in a third world country, is like, yeah, I'll just fix it. Maybe it's just a little spring. Maybe it just needs a little glue, and kind of put it back together. Like I remember a while back we talked about we had scheduled power outages. During some of those, there were spikes. When the power would come back, there were spikes. During some of those spikes, the stereo broke. The stereo in the house broke. Once I got into college and I started learning a little bit, it's like, oh, this is probably what broke. I went downtown. I bought a little transformer. That was like $5. I replaced the transformer. Boom, stereo's back on.
Look at that.
So the stereo sat there for years broken. But once I got into college, like, wait a second, I just replaced this little part. I had a soldering iron for school, like soldered a few cables, and the stereo started working again. It's like, okay. I mean,
See,
it was a nice stereo. It's been there forever.
yeah. Well, necessity breeds innovation. I mean, Cuba is a perfect example of that. I mean,
All of their vehicles are all old boat parts.
yeah.
You know, it's crazy if you go down there. It's just, and it's all old carbureted engines, so their vehicles all stink. But you know, it's like because of the embargoes and because of when the Soviet Union fell and they couldn't get in because they've got a bunch of old Soviet era Russian made vehicles that they can't get parts for anymore. They just started fixing them with boat parts. It's an island. There's boats everywhere. Let's start using these.
Yeah, that's why I told Dom last time we went on a hike. Like, I'm still looking. I'm not ready to get one yet, but I'm looking for an old Beetle. Like, that's gonna be my apocalypse vehicle because it only has one belt for the alternator.
Mhm.
The fuel pump is mechanical. The brakes are mechanical. There's no brake fluid. There's no radiator. And it'll just run forever. Just do basic maintenance. That little car will run forever.
Yeah. Yeah. I was probably the longest I've ever talked about cars in my life. Because I'm not a car guy. I mean, like, fixing them or tuning them up and stuff like that. But that was such an interesting conversation we had. And talking about Pablo's racing. And it's just like, man, it's just like Pablo is layers. And it's like every time you hang around with him, okay, you just peel another layer back and you're like, holy crap. Okay, I didn't think that was going to be happening.
Yeah, well, I posted it on over the weekend. I made pasta with my nieces from scratch, like
That
eggs
was
and flour.
cool, by the way. That was real cool.
Eggs and flour. We had pasta for dinner.
Yep.
That is awesome. And did you use? How'd you make the strands? There was something. It was like a metal.
There's so you need to process the dough basically. So in order to, you can do it by hand, but it'll take forever. So the little machine will process the dough, so you have a very homogeneous mixture. And once you have that, I have a little video I can share later. Once you have that big piece, you can either use it for lasagna. You can make wontons, and then the other side of the machine has two sections: one for spaghetti, one for fettuccine, just thicker.
What'd that cost you?
The pasta machine?
Yeah.
It was like
He
40
made
bucks.
that out of some spare parts. Yeah.
No, it was like $40. It was not that expensive.
Yeah, because my wife's been talking about it. We were thinking about doing that, and I've seen them before, but just never pulled the trigger on them.
No, it's really simple to use. So I would say, because my grandfather was Chinese, and instead of doing the typical thing where they would set up a Chinese restaurant, he had a bakery.
Huh.
So they're always cooking at home. So when I was like 10, it was like, okay, it's now your turn to make the pasta, because we were like 8 people that we had for lunch over the weekend at my grandma's. So they were like, okay, now you're old enough. Now you're making the pasta. So they taught me how to make the pasta, and my aunt still has the machine. They've had it for like 50 years. It still works. But I had to make the pasta from then on, either for us to eat, or every now and then we would do some meals. So my uncle would try to sell meals. So the family was having a party, and they wanted Chinese food for 40 people. So I was like, okay, what do you want? You want egg rolls? You want wonton? You want lo mein? So we would just make it and take it there and get paid for that. Like, I used to sell egg rolls at school. Like, we'll take orders for egg rolls during the week, make it on Saturday, deliver them on Sunday.
That is awesome. I had another layer of the onion peeled back.
That's how I bought my first Nintendo. Like I sold egg rolls, saved some money, and went and bought my Nintendo.
Oh, but it's a great story. Okay, and again, learning more about you, but it so fits in the conversation in the sense that when you're trying to support a community, okay, we put away, like when I say we, I say in the pepper sphere, oh, I'm storing X amount of 100 pounds of flour, okay, to do what? Or wheat berries, okay. Well, you need to have a grinder. Well, you can go to Amazon and spend $100, $150 on electrical. You can spend even more than that. And then some people, oh, you need a manual one. Well, those are more expensive than the electrical ones. So it's like, okay, so which way do you go? So say you got the grinder and you have all this flour. What are you going to do? Just make bread every day? I mean, you can make pasta. I mean, there's so many different products you can make out of flour.
Well, that's why I like doing the corn, because of the variety. With the wheat berries, you're really only relegated to breads and cakes and things like that. That's why I like storing corn over wheat berries. You can eat the corn as is. You can make cornmeal, grits, corn flour with it, making cornbread, things of that nature. You have such a variety. You can feed it to your animals, throw it on the ground, and shoot a deer when it comes by. Allegedly, baiting's illegal. I would never do that. But you have a lot more variety with the corn than you do the wheat and flour for that. I'd be curious to try using corn to make pasta. Maybe a corn flour based.
Does it get doughy? Like
yeah.
Yeah, that'd be interesting.
I mean, you got to grind it fine. It's kind of a pain to process, but we've used it to make cornbread.
Yeah, something that we do, but with white corn, not yellow corn, is we make some patties, arepas. It's basically a plain, and then you grill them. It's plain, but it's plain on purpose because you can just mix it with whatever. You can stuff it with cheese and ham. You can have it as a side dish. You can put egg on it. It's very versatile. It's a different kind of corn, but you can still try it. Oh, actually, never mind. We do have arepas that are made with yellow corn, but they tend to be sweet. So if you can grill them and stuff them with I forget the name, a specific kind of cheese that it can get hot and chewy but doesn't fully melt. Those are really good.
Growing up Pablo, you get like some of the best food. You get Chinese food, Spanish food, Italian food. What else? You got a cousin that's Indian or something, and you guys have curry stew too? I mean,
no, my cousins are from Spain. So that's how I learned to eat octopus and oysters. Yeah. That my uncle, we when he had some gatherings, they used to actually make the octopus like right there instead of I mean, you can go to Publix and buy it in a can. It tastes okay, but no, they actually cooked the octopus and grilled it and everything, and had the fancy olives and all that stuff. So yeah, those were good days.
Very nice, man. Maybe we'll have to do a little foodie activity or something. Do some experimenting. What I was trying to get to before is that other than the ladies running a food channel, sometimes it's a guy, but mostly it's the ladies. Okay. And if they're talking about, food storage, they're actively using all those products. They're using it more like a food pantry, and, just rotating things out. Versus all the dudes that you see just storing food in buckets, but you never see a video of them using the food that's in the buckets. Rice, wheat berries, beans. You never see any dishes. So, it makes me wonder if there's just a bajillion pounds of flour, beans, and rice out there that these guys don't even eat in the normal times, let alone rotating them out.
So
And-
I've noticed that. I've talked with a few of my friends who do long-term storage, and I'll ask them, it's like, hey, how often are you rotating your stuff? And I've gotten the same response, with the exception of my guys out in Oklahoma. They're like, oh, it lasts 30 years. I don't need to rotate it. Right, but you want to try it. So we randomly will select a bag once a year, cut it open, replace whatever it is, be it corn, rice, beans, whatever. One thing that I've noticed, rice, no problem, haven't had any difference in rice. Corn, no problem, haven't had any difference in my corn. Beans, they tend to get this like almost dehydrated look, like the skin gets a little wrinkly, and you have to soak the beans 2 to 3 times longer than you normally would.
wow.
It is that the at least with the black beans, the consistency of the bean does clearly change. That is something, and that was, I think those were 4 or 5-year-old beans that we had busted open. But yeah, the corn, never had a problem with corn, never had a problem with the rice.
Yeah. So like I put back a whole bunch of rice several years ago. Now we go through the rice, so, but I have not replenished to the same level. So I'm like, let me work through some of this because it was my first time doing it. I haven't used any of the beans that I put back. Now we eat black beans, and baked beans, but we just crack open a can because we don't eat the volume to make it. Plus, if I'm not doing,
I'm like 20% rice and beans.
Yeah. See now, and it's a good thing. Okay, you guys have a big family to feed, and your wife does a lot of the cooking, especially from scratch, basically, to utilize it. Where if sometimes just me and my dad, sometimes it's me, my dad, and my kids. Everyone has different taste buds. No one's really ever eaten the same thing. We usually make a variety of things in a big batch of food, and everybody just kind of takes what they want because everyone has different tastes and stuff. But we eat a decent amount of rice. But shoot, I bought all that yellow rice. Remember I brought you those couple of boxes? I found one more case. I got to remember to bring. And I used to love yellow rice, but nobody else likes to eat it now. But me.
So we actually haven't had rice in a little bit. My wife's been on a health kick. Her and Derek's wife have been doing phenomenal with that. So I haven't gotten my rice, which I'm not happy about, but she's happy with the weight loss she's had. So
yeah,
more power to her. But one thing my wife used to do that was freaking amazing is every month she would pick a new country. There for a while, it was like every week, but she would just pick a handful of dishes from whatever country it was and then just make that, just to kind of like keep it fresh. And when it was Southeast Asia or like South America, that's where my heart lies, man. I grew up in a migrant community, so like I have a fond love of Spanish food. So yeah, that yellow rice kicked in. When I brought all that home, I think she went like Venezuela or something and just like spent the whole week making Venezuelan food. And it was phenomenal.
Very nice. Yeah. All right. Let's see here. Yeah, we're getting close to wrapping it up. So we're going to do security planning tomorrow night for those that are going to join us. In the next couple of weeks, we'll probably do like a medical planning. We might break that up into 2, just depending. I'm really trying to go through this series to really get the juices flowing, getting people to think and see different perspectives, kind of compare and contrast what they're planning, what they've done in the past, and maybe jumpstarting some things they were thinking about. Just need that little bit of nudge. Our audience is broadening out, so more and more people that are not local are watching the show, and that's great. Don't be afraid to reach out to us, even if you're not in our area. We love to hear comments and feedback. If you jump on the live stream, throw some comments in, kind of let us know what your area is. You won't lose any OPSEC by saying, hey, Palo Alto County, Oklahoma. That's not a real county, guys. But, we just like to see how far our reach is getting, and if you're watching it after the live stream, just throw the comments in there or, email us. You can email me at fitandfierce@gmail.com. Always love to hear from people. And, if you guys have any ideas for future shows out in the audience, let me know. And, we love to have the engagement and interaction. And I was checking the dashboard today. I think we're up to 82 or 85 subscribers. So it's pretty good. Our shorts are getting, hundreds and hundreds of views. Some gone over 1,000. But those are only a couple of minutes, each. Please, if you ever catch any of our shorts and you like what you're seeing or you're hearing or whatever, watch our whole show. You could do it out in segments, watch 10 minutes here, 15 minutes there. Conversation's always broad, and we talk about a whole bunch of different things while we're in the show. So, and we like to change up the panel and stuff like that. So and for my local folks, don't forget, this Saturday, we're having our first group hike out at Starkey Wilderness Preserve in Newport Richey / Trinity area. That'll be at 9 a.m. If you're interested in that, reach out to me. Comms project, that's within the networks. So if you're local and you're in one of my networks or Sam's, or you know somebody who knows somebody, reach out to us. We see if we can get you involved that's later in the month. But other than that, any final thoughts, Brendan, and then Pablo when he's done?
Yeah, no, I think it was a good discussion.
Right.
No, just need to make that list of items that I need to get, like Brendan mentioned, like for plumbing and that kind of stuff. I don't have any concerns at the moment of something breaking, but still want to have those items handy, just in case. Like Home Depot is like 10 minutes away, which is pretty convenient. But I like building stashes of some of those parts, so I can just grab something instead of having to drive down there and leaving something here broken, leaking, or whatever.
Yeah, very good. Good thoughts. All right. Well, we're going to conclude the show, everybody. Thanks for tuning in. As always, look forward to seeing you guys tomorrow night for episode 19, Security Planning. Please join in if you can. Otherwise, you guys have a great night and see you tomorrow. Let's see here.